YGO Strats single card discussions, going to be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh throughout the years. Today's card, the third Solemn in the trio, because Scolding was underwhelming, Solemn Strike. Solemn Strike was first released in Breakers of Shadow in January of 2016, with notable reprints including the 2016 Megatons, Code of the Duelist Special Edition and OTS Pack 4 in 2017, Duel Devastator in 2019, and the Grand Creators in 2022. As of this video, Strike has spent no time on the ban list. A counter trap card, its effect reads: when a monster would be special summoned or a monster effect is activated, pay 1500 life points, negate the summon or activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Strike is the second most versatile Solemn card, ignoring Scolding because that card doesn't count. The card is yet another example of power creep, with Strike being a combination of both Black Horn of Heaven and Divine Wrath in one card. Yeah, when this card came out, it single-handedly pushed those cards out of the meta for what little play they had seen. As you can see from this deck list, Black Horn of the Heaven was in the meta at some point. Wild. Strike has the smallest set cost of all the Solemns and is the one that feels the most practical in the modern game. It negates monster effects and summons. As time has gone on, that aspect has only given it more favor, as monster effects became and continue to remain the biggest part of Yu-Gi-Oh! An important note about Strike is that, like Judgment before it, it can only negate summons that don't start a chain. You can't strike the summon of a fusion or a ritual monster, or a summon off of a card like Call of the Haunted or Back to the Front. The plus side to it is that even if you can't stop all of those types of summons, you can stop all of the effects of those monsters, which oftentimes doesn't really make a difference as long as the card disappears. When Strike was first released in 2016, it was the same set that gave the TCG Pepe, one of the strongest decks in the game's history. The same set also released Guiding Ariande, a monster that could search out Strike and other counter traps. A variant of Pepe and eventually Draco Piles would go on to be decks that could set 4 Solemns in one turn, almost always featuring 1 or 2 copies of Strike. After that, its time in the meta was pretty limited. Not many decks would continue to main generic trap cards in 2017 through to today, but in control decks, things like Altergeist, Strike was right at home. As of this video, it remains as the other Solemn that does still see some play besides Judgment, thanks to the prevalence of monster effects and its strength in decks like the previously mentioned Altergeist or maybe even other things like Paleo. Overall, it more than kept up the legacy of the Solemn trap, being one of the stronger and more reliable counter traps available in the game, and like the Solemns before it, a staple worthy of playing. Unlike Scolding, which to this day remains a disappointment. And so that's our look at single card discussions, Solemn Strike. Stay tuned for our next video. Feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like and, as always, subscribe to YGO Strats so you too can become a true duelist.